think I'm unlevel. Am I unlevel? You know, it has to be exactly right. That's why I have the cube, so I can stay level, but it's not exactly right. I'm going to just take that as right enough. Okay. What I haven't done is I haven't pulled up my moderators, and they're kind of important for me to ask questions. How are you guys doing? Are you enjoying the, could it be any hotter? The gates of, hey y'all. Yeah, I don't, I'm going to Tampa. Any of you guys live in Tampa? I'm going to be there Friday. And they were like, warning, it's going to be 92 degrees. I'm like, no, it's 5,000 degrees here today. So we are going to get into the questions. All the back to school stuff has already started. Kids being picked up. Kids being called to, you know, parents to pick them up. We don't know what to do with them. Oh, thank you, Danielle. Oh, thank God you're a teacher. God bless teachers. God bless teachers. You guys tell us where you're coming in from. Is that good English? I don't even know if that's good English. Where you're dialing in from. Yes. Let's see. Okay. I'm just talking to myself here, y'all. I just, can we just talk about that I'm wearing, lipstick 620. I just think that it's important that sometimes you gotta, mix it up. L'Oreal. North Carolina, Arkansas, Western Massachusetts is, I didn't know Massachusetts was that good. Selena, outside Atlanta, Idaho. I love this. They're all putting where they're from. Somebody asked me if I'm drinking soup out of a cup. Yes, you know what this is, you guys? Do y'all want to see that? It's egg drop soup. I know it's making Alicia crazy, but I drink it out of a straw. What's bad is sometimes when you drink it out of a straw, like a little, they're all like gagging. Sometimes like a little worm comes over the edge, so. I had to get my protein in. So, poor my moderators are all like, "Ooh, cover your eyes, Mom." Okay, I'm ready. I know, Bethany. Wow. Hey, Melissa, I've been watching your chat GPT, and I love you're going blonde. I love it. I'm here for it. All right, Quinn didn't have to see the picture. Did you have to see the picture, Quinn? It was bad. Yeah. So, you have to get through whatever you have to get through. Okay, we're going to let the great, whoever go first. Bonnie, you want to go first? She was like, I was afraid you were going to call my name.
Bonnie. Or Karen. Oh, man. Hold on.
Oh,
I do not have the pre-question that Alicia sent out. I don't know who she sent them to.
Bonnie, I'm going to forward the email to you.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, that is a trick I do with my straw. We do a 7-hour seminar on that. It's a gift I have. It's a gift. I know. Are you guys back at school? I just duetted Houston Independent School District. It's 250,000 children there. And their professional development was today. And they didn't have seats in this big like convention centers. They made people sit on the concrete. 2 words. See ya. We're not doing that. It's a no for me. It's a no for me. Right, Gina? We're not doing that.
While Bonnie's getting that, I'm going to read the first question, Bonnie, okay? Yeah, the first one we have is, can students in special education use the same interventions as non-identified students? For example, the school uses Wilson for both SPED and MTSS at the same duration and intensity. Does that invalidate the specialness of specially designed instruction?
I think that's the best word I've ever heard in my whole life. Does that invalidate the specialist in special ed? We need to make that a shirt today. Alicia, I need you to go. So here's the thing. It's not the product, it's the delivery, right? So Gina could be the world's greatest dyslexia instructor. There's 2 pathways to instruction. General education, you take that same curriculum. Obviously, if it's for a student that's impacted by special education, if the acuity of your dyslexia is special ed, then the regular normed and standard way that you deliver that instruction has to be differentiated. You have to change the modality, the cadence, the way you deliver it, and the way that you check, more importantly, the understanding that the student has acquisition of the information.
Okay, perfect. And our second question is, your video on PLAFs is interesting. As a SPED teacher, I am told, directed, and trained to only fill in sections of the PLAF that goals will be written for. We are criticized, threatened, and marked down if we do what you suggest. We are warned that if the state SPED review sees a PLAF topic mentioned, that they will see a goal in that area and the district will be marked down for it. So how about speaking to that? I know you're an advocate, but can you give me and other special educators the leverage to do our job right?
I'm going to give you the leverage right now. So there's a little 9-page document. And when you see this, my fancy assistant, because she's young, will have added the information up here. So the Office of Special Education Programs in December 2017 put out a 9-page Q&A about the most important landmark decision in special education, the Andrew F. versus Douglas County, that was heard and seen and ruled upon by the U.S. Supreme Court. And part of that is to re-clarify what is FAPE, what is a free appropriate public education. And it says that the LEA, the local education agency, has a duty, responsibility, and onus to develop an IEP, the student to make progress in light of their unique circumstances. So say that with me, unique circumstances. So the present levels is solely describing in great detail their unique circumstances. And it's even called in case law an intense activity, right? That we make sure that we have written this carefully and we've discovered and thought about and considered everything that impacts a student, not just their IEP goals that they're going to have, not just their disabilities, not just their medical needs, not just their life experience, sociological, but everything. That we write an IEP based on their unique circumstances. So that is the law of the land. So we'll put it up here. We can tag it. We can send it to you. But it's the Office of Special Education Programs 2017. It's a Q&A on Andrew F. And that is the standard of the law. This very one robust line that says the LEA has reasonably calculated. I cannot reasonably calculate a child's needs if I don't include all of them. And so if I'm your trainer, I'm training people to do bell to bell. Sometimes it's bus to bus. But kiddos have needs that don't rise to the level of an IEP goal. That's a really good framework. And I would applaud your school. That's a good starting place, but it's insufficient and it's not complete enough.
And in addition to standardized measures to determine if a child has met criteria for an IEP, should one expect informal inventory such as in reading if a child struggles in reading?
That's a really good question. So we have children that are found eligible for special education, and the actual professional evaluators did not find them eligible. So the law says is that we consider all pieces of information that are presented to the IEP committee to see if the student qualifies for special education and a need for related services. And so sometimes that is impacted by the conversation that goes on in a meeting. I was in an amazing IEP meeting one time in Lamar Consolidated Independent School District, and the evaluators did not find the student eligible for special education. You have to remember the evaluators do their evaluation in isolation, and while we're called a multidisciplinary team, they populate their evaluations into software. They don't usually just meet as a group and talk about them. So that is the point of coming together at the consideration of eligibility meeting. And in that meeting, I was able to point out to the amazing diagnostician, do you see how many times when you were working with him to get his diagnostic profile, you talked about how distracted he was, distracted. Well, that is not what the LSSP, the Licensed Specialist in School Psychology, saw during his evaluations. And they're both amazing evaluators, but we had to talk about these separate important pieces as a committee to see that there was an educational need for the student to meet educational need for special education and related services for ADHD. And it was really the diagnostician who found that out, and her very robust description of what it was like to test him.
And can you provide some help? The principal for my child has a non-district policy refusing to allow teachers to send messages to parents on crying children, even with a medical diagnosis, at the time of occurrence. How can I get this overridden?
Trying to think of really nice words to say. No, No. We don't have a rule that says you can't talk to people. That would be ridiculous.
Okay, and Awakened Momster, that's a good name, asks, she is in Maryland, or she's a Maryland teacher but lives in Pennsylvania. Will the training she receives in your class teach about the rules and laws for specific states or for all of America?
So the rule that we live by that started December 2nd, 1975 is special education. Most of that's never changed. There was a reenactment in 2004 where we added transition and ESY and removed that severe discrepancy model. We didn't remove the discrepancy model. We just removed the severe discrepancy model. So when we train people from Alaska to Miami to New Hampshire to San Diego, the application of state and federal law is the same. Very rarely will you have a state that has different language than IDEA. However, we do train on that. And sometimes there's specificity that actually increases the benefit of IDEA that might be in your state statutes. But our training is to train advocates nationwide.
Okay, and this question is from a special education teacher in her 3rd year of teaching. Her cousin has autism and is age 7, but goes to a different school district than hers. She has gotten word from his mother and father that the school is trying to make him go to a school that is 30 minutes away because they cannot accommodate him. He has an IEP for his disability, and the only reason they want to send him and other students with like disabilities to a different school is because the assistant for special education and all the aides quit recently. Is it legal for them to make him go to a different school that far away when it isn't his home school?
So, lot going on in that question. The short answer is yes. If that is the place where we can meet the obligations and the conformity of his IEP, then we do that. Sometimes we do have to change placement based on, this.
And Sherry lives in Georgia. She says her son has an IEP for speech with behavioral modifications due to him being high functioning autism, severe ADHD, ODD, and RAD. He tests at his grade level, but socially he is that of a 9 or 10-year-old. He is in 8th grade and is 13. He no longer qualified for speech, so they put him on a 504 plan for his behaviors because of the autism. They are not wanting to go by the 504. Would he qualify for an IEP to be in a regular classroom? They keep telling me if he has an IEP, they would have to put him in special ed.
Well, an IEP doesn't dictate where you receive your education. An IEP dictates the level of extra support that you're going to need that's more than the general education staff can provide. So it's unfortunate when we threaten people as it relates to special education and related services. I don't find 504 is beneficial for the thousands of students that I've served, but there are some kiddos that do benefit from a 504. There are no service minutes. There's nothing we're measuring. There's no goals, and there's no special education training. Remember, in special education, we have one goal, and that is we teach kiddos strategies to self-manage their disability. So as an advocate, a special education advocate, 999% of the people that I serve are on an IEP. If you think the 504 is adequate, then keep that. Both of them say that you have an identified disability. So the question is, do they need specialized instruction and or related services?
All right, last one for me, and I will send it to Shannon. Do gen ed minutes for PE, music, and library have to be part of the IEP services? There's a school that is not allowing SPED students to go to specials because it is not part of their IEP, and they are not allowed to eat with their gen ed peers.
So again, kind of like we talked about in the previous question from that young person about the present levels dictate where we educate a student, where they maximize their IEP. The law requires for us to consider LRE, least restrictive environment, otherwise known legally as extent of non-participation. If a student is not participating with their non-disabled peers, then the school has to define that very clearly in the paperwork. If they were audited, it is on them to describe why they could not be with their general education peers. It would be very rare that you find special education students that could not participate with their non-disabled peers with supports in elementary school for math, computer, library, PE, and art, and those sorts of things. But we just don't, unilaterally say special ed kids, because they're not special ed kids. They're general ed students who receive special ed services, just cannot be in general ed.
Okay. Would a teacher releasing my daughter's hospital homebound status to other students be a FERPA violation?
It's a violation of your privacy, absolutely.
In Texas, do paras have to have a certificate or certification?
Yeah, so when you, which I'm there all the time, I feel like if you go to Texas Education Agency and it's called certification lookup, you could just type in teacher lookup and you would type in that para's name, that teacher's name, that coach's name, and it would tell you all the certifications that they've received and met compliance on in the state of Texas. And so it will say level 1, 2, or 3 aid is what it would say in Texas. And I love paraprofessionals, but you're either a certified para or you're not. You're either a certified teacher or you're not. And you're either a certified special education teacher or you're not. We actually had a question come up from a lot of our clients, and our teams, our advocates have called and said, there's no certified teacher in the classroom. What do I do? And I'm all about grace. And I'm like, well, give them a week or two. Maybe they're just getting their stuff out of the car in the parking lot. But there is no exemption for special ed services as it relates to children with disabilities.
The school told me I can't request an IEE after a reevaluation. Is that correct?
You can't request an IEE after a reevaluation after 365 days. So let's say that April 10th, you got an evaluation, you disagree with it. If you let them know April 9th, you want the IEE, you can always request it, but that's within the timeline. You can't just wait 2 years and go, I don't like it now. It has to be done within a year.
Can you have a student in your class without his one-to-one aid?
You can have a student, you can have anything, right? It's a requirement that we implement, it's called the conformity of the IEP. And that's what we agreed upon and we signed off on. So if it's part of his individualized education program, then we have a responsibility to deliver it. If not, I would reach out to the district and ask for a meeting to consider out-of-district placement at the expense of the district.
A high school said they do a preliminary test to see if my grandson will be eligible for testing. Is this true?
You guys are so funny with these questions. A preliminary test. So here's the test. Do you suspect a child has a disability? That's the test. It's a child find question, right? We have a duty as school districts to evaluate children who have suspected disabilities. That's the whole requirement. Not a test before a test to do a test and 17 weeks of RTI and 4 years of MTSS and 6 weeks of SST and all the things that people are jumping through hoops.
What can I do if my son's IEP from Texas has several inaccuracies and his school in South Carolina says they can't hold a transfer meeting and would rather send him to a different school?
So, that's a tough question. I don't know the totality of your story. When another district receives an IEP, they have to, as a transfer, they have to implement it. So if it came from Texas and it said self-contained or something like that, they have to match services. So as it relates to things being wrong in the IEP, I don't know if those are clerical errors. I don't know if those can be corrected because you have a recording, but they do have an obligation to match services from the last district.
What is the best approach when a parent wants to reduce service minutes?
I'm thinking that means the school doesn't want to reduce service minutes. So the best approach, however you say to the IEP meeting, is two things that I train everybody on. What does the law say? And then what does the data show? That's the only way we make decisions.
My child with an IEP returned to school last week and there is no ESE teacher on staff. What do I do?
I would reach out to the principal and indicate in writing, I'm greatly concerned that my student is being denied a free, appropriate public education as no special educators are providing him his IEP.
My son's teacher doesn't let the para talk to me about his day. Is that okay?
So, okay and legal, two different things. Bad manners doesn't necessarily mean illegal. However, you certainly have the right to talk to people that provide your student an education. So it's really important at meetings. When I'm at a meeting, I will say, okay, Gina, who is the science teacher? And they'll say, Brian Johnson, right? And I'll say, who is the second teacher? Miss K. Like a special K, like just the letter K. So when you're in the meetings, I would ask for who are the teachers in the classroom. You certainly have a legal right to ask that. You don't have a right to make the para talk to you. Unfortunately, paras who are the greatest of the great don't even attend IEP meetings. That is unfortunate. I often call them the nurse to the doctor. They do so much of the heavy lifting and we love them. It's unfortunate that is the setup, but that is the setup. So I can't usurp the special ed teacher or the general ed teacher from not allowing me to talk to the para.
Do you or your advocates handle 504s for type 1 diabetes in North Texas?
We handle, so funny, just in South Texas. I'm just kidding. No, we handle 504s, we handle IEPs. We were just doing a training this morning with our partners on students with diabetes and the kind of IEPs or 504 they would actually have.
Why are some states allowed to only investigate 1 year back for a state complaint?
Because of their legislation. So Texas, we just had our statute changed to 2 years. Hallelujah. On the last, not this last one, but the last legislative session. So just now we can go back 2 years. So it's all based upon who controls your state education agency. Texas ranks 50th, 50 in special education delivery services in the United States out of 50. So we were shocked that we actually got that.
This person says they have a child with seizures, G button in WC, and was told that the nurse cannot attend class with them. Is this okay?
So if they have nursing, then of course that nurse goes wherever the student goes, if that's what you're talking about. If you're talking about the school-based nurse coming in during the instructional day, that's going to be contingent on how you wrote the IHP, the individualized health care plan. So I would go back in and look at that, and then I would also look at their PCS, the personal care supplement.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more, and then I'll pass it on to Christina. When can I ask for my son to be reevaluated?
When it's been more than a year since he's been evaluated.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a long. That's why I don't have to go there. When a school initiates an FBA, does that automatically trigger child find for a special education eval?
Behavior does not necessarily indicate a disability. Child fine is triggered when we suspect a student has a disability. So you can have emotional and behavioral needs and not have a disability. You can have anybody in the school could have a behavior plan, whether they're general ed, 504, or IE, or special ed.
Excellent. Okay, so what is the difference between supplementary aids and supports and accommodations and modifications?
So those are three different things. So an accommodation changes how you learn. A modification changes what you learn. And supplementary aids and supports are whatever else this kiddo needs to be successful. It could be everything from a specific setting to a pencil grip, right? It's that anything else that he needs to be successful and us have the ability to implement his least restrictive environment.
Can you talk about IEPs and 504s in post-secondary education?
Could we get one more question in that question? Yeah. So IEPs are individualized education programs for students that are identified who are in need of special education and related services. A 504 is a civil rights law. And that started in 1973. And that simply said, if you have a disability, the school, or really anywhere else from the time you get here till, you leave the earth, that nobody, whether it's in work or at your job or at school, can discriminate against you and withhold your accommodations. So a 504, in my opinion, was never meant to be this great educational product. It's not an educational product. It's a civil rights act. It's my experience that almost every 504 that I see is really good, just good teaching. So for my families, we're looking to see if they're in need of an IEP. The great thing about that is the testing will tease that out. It'll identify or eliminate. And then post-secondary success is a legal requirement if you have an IEP, and it says at the latest at age 16, when they're going to be in 16 during their IEP year, that we come up with a transition product, a transition supplement, a transition plan for them to have post-secondary success for gainful employment, independent living, and further education. It is called a set of coordinated activities. And what it is not, say it with me, Quinn, it's not a goal going, Billy's going to pick out his classes for high school. That's not a transition goal. You know what that is? That's a goal to irritate the advocate, okay? So transition is a set of coordinated activities for him to be post-secondary successful, gainful employment, independent living, and further education.
Okay, so just want to talk, and I have to say I love that one. So just want to talk said, wait, by law, they have to have a certified teacher for SPED students, question mark.
So there is no exception or exemption for special educators. And let's talk about who special educators are. They are people that provide instructional services, related services, nursing services, and special education. And so all of those hats have to be certified special education. We just had in our training today, somebody, one of our friends in a school district, I won't tell you what they start with. I want to, but I'm not going to. And there's no special ed teacher in the self-contained behavioral unit. And the principal goes, well, she passed her test. Okay. So there's lots of tests that you can pass, but you have to meet the state's requirement to be a special education teacher. So whatever those requirements are in Tennessee or Georgia or Mississippi, obviously passing that test, I'm sure, is part of it. But once you've completed those requirements for that state, the state is going to post that almost immediately. I reached out to our Department of Education in Texas, and they basically said at the latest it would take 7 days. So let's just say today was the first day of school and it just hasn't posted yet. But the special education teacher either is a special education teacher or you're witnessing a crime.
Okay, so Sleepy Teacher asked, said, I'm a special education teacher. My admin does not agree with the IEPs I make based on money, not need. Where do I go to get more support and advocacy for my students?
Probably another district. Unfortunately, principals are the sheriff, right? And I've had great districts that had great principals, and then there's one rotten egg. And principals are kind of like bad hair color. It's hard to get rid of them. I can't change somebody's mindset. You either have principals that have special ed in their bones or they don't. That's just been my experience. Maybe you guys have a different experience. Most of the people that are on our team now are actually amazing, life-changing school-based members who went to school and have their doctorate and their master's in education and have given decades of their life to education and were beating their head against the wall, doing baseline things that were right for kids, that were literally called out of meetings saying, I don't know if we're going to be able to play ball together. We're not playing ball. Nobody's playing ball here. When you deny a child special education, you populate dysfunction. We populate prisons. We populate other ways for kiddos to be unsuccessful because they needed that special education. And so I have no grace for anybody in schools asking for somebody who's doing it right to fudge it, change it, or not do things to serve kids with disabilities. But if you would like to come join us, we will train you to be a rock star special education advocate, and you can help kids from the outside in.
Right. Why would a school deny an out-of-district placement?
Cha-ching. Cha-ching. So an out-of-district placement, I think I have right now maybe 5 kids that are out-of-district placement. I have a lot of clients every year, which I'm not going to tell you how many because Bonnie's doing a poll right now. When I have a child that's out-of-district placement, there's a likelihood that's going to be forever. It's going to be permanent, right? And I have kiddos that started out-of-district placement. I had a child for out-of-district placement that was seven. She had to go to basically a home, a psychiatric unit that was 3 hours away from where her parents lived in North Houston. And she's doing great now, but she absolutely needed that. So when you get to a place where the school district does not have a provision of education that encompasses progress for your child's IEP, then as hard as it is, it's not some fun thing that I do or my clients do. Nobody wants to have a child removed from the district, but school districts have limits, right? They're not hospitals. They're not correctional facilities. They're not medical institutions. They're not behavior changers. So, they have limits. Ooh, I like this poll. This is very fancy. All my young people are making the poll. I don't know how to do any of that, but thanks, Bonnie.
That's right. All right. Do we have a say in the paraprofessional that the board hires for a one-to-one?
Never. Nope. You don't have a say. And additionally, I say to my clients, you have got to honor and trust the school district until they give you a reason not to. I don't have a say in who they hire. I'm going to assume that all great school districts hire all qualified people. But there are people that aren't good at their job in schools, in churches, at Target, at Walmart. So that does happen. We're going to assume that everybody passed the same criteria to hold that position.
My son's teacher told me they prevent him to going to certain activities because of his elopement in class. There's another portion to that. What are they allowed to withhold him from activities?
So, the primary responsibility of a teacher is to keep a child safe, right? So I have, running shoes. They don't make me run, right? And kiddos, I have a 3-year-old grandchild. When he sees something, he's very fast, right? So when we have a child that's identified that has that struggles to stay in their designated area or to always follow directives, primacy is always going to be safety. And until we can have gains in that area, I do think it's appropriate not to put him in situations that's going to exacerbate that.
Can my son have an IEP or a 504 with asthma, ADHD, and anxiety?
Any of those, yeah. I have kiddos that just have asthma and they're on an IEP. I have kiddos that just have, and I don't mean just have, but have diabetes and they're on an IEP. The IEP is, what is it that I need to teach this child to self-manage their disability?
Should classes be divided based on whether or not a student has an IEP?
That's called segregation. We stopped that a while back. I think we stopped that December 2nd, 1975 with the Educating All Handicapped Children Act. Now, there are some children that the acuity of their disability is such that in the day or parts of the day, they're best served with solely disabled children with special educators.
And then lots and lots of comments about kiddos not having teachers in the classroom, self-contained, gen ed, resource, all across the board. All right, what is happening in 26 minutes?
I thought you were going to say, what's happening in 2026? I'm like, I'll have more grandchildren? No, I don't know. In 26 minutes, we have the Special Education Academy. We are in a series you don't want to miss called Every Page of the IEP. And I think we're only 4 pages into the 148-page document. And people are stunned about what's supposed to be in the IEP. And we're just at just at the very beginning. You guys need to know what goes into an IEP document, whether you're in the glorious Florida or Louisiana who use a whole 16 pages to write an IEP, or if you're in Houston Independent School District, which uses 60 pages to write an IEP. I want you to be able to know what components are missing based on the student's unique circumstances, however you sit at the IEP table. So come on down. And Alicia, can you tell them in your best, voice how they could come on down and join us on the Academy?
So what you're going to do is you're going to go to www.specialeducationacademy.com. You're going to click on the training tab at the top, and you're going to scroll until you see the Academy. You're going to click on that. You're going to put in all of your information, and then there's going to be a little spot at the blue, and it says coupon code, ? You're going to click on that, and in all caps, you're going to put TikTok Live. That's T for Timothy, I for Indigo, K for Karen, T for Timothy, O for Oliver, K for Karen, L for Levi, I for Indigo, V for Victory, E for Elephant. You're going to put that in. You're going to get 15 days for free. And if you need a visual, like some people do, you just go to Karen's TikTok page, and right at the top, there's a pinned video with all the steps for you.
Yes. Hey, hello from San Antonio.
Right. Okay. I had a couple people ask, how do they get a hold of you or one of the other advocates on the team?
You just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
All right. And then my child hasn't made progress in 2 years. What should I do?
Oh, my Lord. Well, you should gently call for a review IEP meeting to look at your student's IEP and progress. And there's an onus, a duty, and responsibility for the special educators to change what they're providing him so that he can make progress in light of his unique circumstances.
All right, and I promise this I'm not planting ones for you. Is it normal or okay if the school pulls all the SPED students to the same room at the same time?
There's no S in IEP. There's no individualized education sameness program. I often see, and our team was just talking about this the other day, sometimes we've actually gone so backwards in special education, it's frightening. But I see more and more segregation happening with children with disabilities.
Absolutely. Okay, what happens to the IEP when the child goes into high school from a town district to a county district?
So whether it's a town, county, or city, depending on where you live in these great United States, a lot of people on the East Coast are called cities. A lot of places are called counties. Some are called districts. And if you're in this other country called Louisiana, it's called a parish. And you have to say it that way, parish. But whatever IEP you had in junior high or middle school continues into high school.
All right, I'm going to ask 2 more, and then I'm going to toss it over to Miss Quinn and her real life plants.
Yes,
Nope.
Quinn will be doing a live on how to keep plants alive. This is how I keep my plants alive. I buy them from at home. I never have to water that plant. Look how happy it is. Quinn actually grows her own plants. It's kind of irritating.
And Quinn, you're gonna have to wait your turn. Vanna White over there is wanting to practice her voiceovers some more. So 2 more questions, and then Vanna is up.
Mm-hmm.
Vanna. All right. I have an IEP and I'm getting a service dog, but I was told that bringing the dog would be a distraction at school.
So let's talk about the service dog and the IEP. You can have a service dog in your life and you have needs. We have to make sure that the service dog is attached to your educational need. And when that happens, we can have that at the school. I've done this for a really long time, and I've only had 1 service dog approved, and that was for a student that had onset cardiac and epilepsy seizures that were profound, and that dog, what is it called? Alerted when that was going to happen. So You've got to really tighten that specificity. I would also include a notification from a physician of the educational need. Make sure that the physician's not talking about a medical need or an emotional need, but it talks about an educational need.
Is it okay for an educator to serve students without having access to see any of their IEP accommodations?
So the word okay is not a word that I use. So it's a requirement, it's a responsibility and an obligation for special educators to provide students a free, appropriate public education. It's a responsibility for educators to provide students their accommodations in their 504. So it's an obligation, it's a duty, it's a responsibility. So to not do that is illegal.
Madam Vanna, you are up from Parish.
No, it's parish. You have to say it like you have a mouthful of like apricots. Parish.
Parishes.
The parishes. Yeah.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I just do English, ma'am. I don't do Cajun.
You gotta do that Cajun French.
No, I don't.
All right. So before we start our rapid fire questions, we did have one more that was submitted that Bonnie didn't get to read, so I'm going to read that one to you. Are you ready?
Bonnie wanted to read it. Is that accurate?
She did. She did. But we didn't give her the time she needed to.
No.
So I'm going to do it instead. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
All right, boss. So, this lady has a question. Okay, it's a little hard for me to follow, so stick with me. Her child is in the K-12 public homeschooling program. So let me start with that. Okay. And she's going to be in the 4th grade. She has autism, dyslexia, ADHD, and she is 2 to 3 grade levels behind and has other learning disabilities. Last year, they sent a professional psychologist to test her, and they found out all this information, and they put her in resource classes, and she did amazing last year. However, this year, they're saying that she can only be in resource for math and English, and she'll have to be in Gen Ed for science and history. Remember, this is virtual on her computer at home. The parent is asking what are her options because she's not doing well in the Gen Ed classes, and she really needs her to be in the resource classes.
So I've done this for a while, 27 years. There's no requirement for resource in science and social studies. There are some campuses that provide it, but almost always I can modify a student's programming to be successful in Gen Ed with in-class support. So there's not a requirement for that. I don't really know how you're getting an IEP virtually because you can't receive services virtually. Special education needs to happen with the student of record. I don't know how the totality of your IEP is being implemented. It's greatly litigated since COVID. If you're having that be successful, that's great. But a lot of times when we don't have the student in the school building, it really limits our ability to exercise our procedural rights and safeguards.
What does that sound mean? Oh, I mean, you'll say it's rapid fire questions.
We didn't hear a sound, ma'am. I think that sound is just in your head.
That happens. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Would an SOP benefit from your courses?
All humans with a beating heart who love kids with disabilities would benefit from the courses.
All right. What happens when the school won't honor the transportation that says should be provided in the IEP?
Well, it's not an honor. It's a requirement. So you didn't get picked for homecoming queen. It's a legal document that they take federal funds for. So you're choosing to deny my child a free, appropriate public education. That's illegal.
All right. And Lisa has been around because she put 12 emojis on her questions. She knew exactly how to get my attention. How to avoid suspensions for a kid who will do anything to get suspended.
How do you avoid that? Have an educational setting that he feels successful at and looks forward to going to school.
All right, this one is from Erica. She said, are you allowed to take your child out of special education?
So let's talk about that. I don't want to very quickly tell people yes. I've had 3 people in my special ed lifetime revoke consent for special education services, and it was devastating. So if you're going to play that card, you have to then know that you have opened up your child to be responsible for the totality of the student code of conduct. And then there's no requirement for the school to provide them additional support outside of general education. You absolutely have the right to revoke consent for special education related services, just like you have to provide consent to begin special education related services. But I would really think about that soberly and longly. I don't know if longly is a word before you make that decision.
Perfect. People are asking me to repeat how to get onto the live tonight, so I'm going to do it very quickly, guys, because there is a pinned video on Karen's TikTok that will take you step by step. But you're going to go to her website, www.specialeducationacademy.com. There's a training tab at the top. You're going to click that. Go to the academy, fill in all of your information. There's a spot that says coupon code. Click on that. TikTok Live, all caps, and that'll get you in the course for tonight. If you have any problems, send us an email at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com, and I'll help you get in for tonight. But again, there is a pinned video on Karen's TikTok, so when you get off of here, you can go there and follow all those steps and get in for tonight.
I just have to say Monica needs to get 12 stars for putting sports balls on her comment. And the answer to her comment is yes.
Perfect. All right. Can substitutes review IEPs?
Can substitutes review? I hope they do. That'd be a problem if they didn't review IEPs.
I also agree.
And somebody is struggling to get the link for tonight. If you're struggling, just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. No tears, no crying emojis. There's no crying in the academy. Well, sometimes there is. But that's just Alicia. That's just me making Alicia cry.
It's just me. I just added assistive technology. Charter school is bucking. What can I do? And she's in New York City.
Oh, you don't want to hear this. You do not want to hear what I'm about to tell you. I have never, ever had a special ed kid successful at a charter school in the United States of America. We have such short staff in public schools. We even have less staff in charter schools. I would just email them the Assistive Technology Act of 1998, which is a congressional act, and hopefully they will abide by that.
All right, this one's interesting. She was advised, this is Match List 13. She says she was advised that North Carolina law, they say they can't have a one-to-one until the data proves their need. My homebound kid needs a one-to-one in order to return.
Okay, so first of all, I doubt that's a law. So, just like I tell my children when they were little that it was a state law that they go to bed, that wasn't really a state law. I would guess 99% of what you hear from staff members as the truth is actually not. And probably just not the whole truth. So reach out to the North Carolina DOE, Department of Education, and say, can you provide me the code that says this? And they will either provide you that code or it doesn't exist. As it relates to your child having a reintegration plan from another setting outside of the district, which was out of their campus, would be homebound. If they need support to be successful in school, then we have to provide that.
Perfect. Can classroom placement change based on not meeting goals in an IEP?
I think that that's certainly a consideration. We have to consider changing what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we're doing it.
Okay. This one it's funny because there are 2 different people that are asking very similar questions. One is saying, can only SPED teachers sub for SPED teachers if absent?
So special education and the sub thing, they're really 2 different issues. We certainly understand that Quinn is going to go, win her Miss America award like she does every year, and she's not going to be there on Thursday, April 12th. This is not about a sub once in a while. This is about schools putting in a nice human that's a substitute, who's not a special education teacher, who doesn't know all of the 504s and all of the IEPs. Do you think a substitute, let's say that they invented special education, let's say they were a retired special education director, do you really think on Thursday, when Cindy is subbing, that she read every student in her classroom 504 and IEP? Lean in. I didn't think so. I didn't think you thought that, right? So these are nice people who are trying to keep the class in order and move general ed curriculum around. But let's look at this honestly.
Amen. And then the other one that was similar but different said, can a substitute be the general education teacher for an IEP meeting?
No. I don't know that there's anybody more important from the school than the general ed teacher, because the onus is always, we have a responsibility to look at that student being in general education. I was in a meeting, I won't tell you what school district, but it rhymes with, okay, I won't say that. I was in a meeting, and the general ed teacher has never taught the student, never seen the student, just happened to be there. And guess what her class was? Ready? Advisory. So I said in my gentle German Irish way, what's the curriculum in advisory? She goes, oh, there's no curriculum. That's just where they catch up on their other stuff. So I said, in the next meeting, let's make sure that the general ed teacher teaches this student. Okay, Miss Cunningham, we'll do that. Really? Come on now. That's why before you go into an IEP meeting, you're going to email them and say, we're so excited about our IEP meeting Thursday. Please provide us a list of all attendees and their role. All attendees and their role, like cinnamon roll, yeast roll, butter roll, ba-dum-bum. They ask you who you're bringing, so make sure that you know who all is there.
Perfect. My child is in ECSC, self-contained. It changed this year. Thinking about pulling him because he is very verbal and now with all nonverbal. Not sure this is the best placement anymore.
That's very smart thinking. You have to remember the criteria for ECSE, Early Childhood Special Education, which used to be PBCD, Preschool Preparation for Children with Disabilities, or preschool programs. The initial criteria across the United States is that you have to have a speech impairment. And so every kiddo in there is receiving speech services. And so sometimes you'll be in a class with kiddos that are not verbal. So you have to decide, is the benefit worth the investment of my student's time there? It's a good question.
Follow me on this, because Monica has a good question, but it's like 4 comments long, so
okay.
There may be a pause in between my reading.
Okay.
My child's teacher's refusing to turn on the lights in the classroom, and the principal is backing her up. She says that she has migraines, the teacher has migraines, but my child can't see, and they have Christmas lights up. My child has an IEP.
I'm sorry.
She has eye disabilities, and they offer her a lamp. I can't make this up. What can I do?
Is it close enough for me to do a press conference? What are you talking about? We have to have indoor plumbing, electricity, lights, desks, curriculum, cafeteria, maybe some dodgeballs to go to school. I know that you are making that up. However, if it's close, I'm happy to fly in and do a press conference. I can't even... Oh, I mean, did you get to pick the Christmas lights? Are they white? Are they blinking? What?
You go back to Tennessee.
Yes.
That's where she's at.
Oh.
Okay, to register for the Zoom tonight, you're going to go to Karen's TikTok page, and you're going to look at the pinned video, and it's going to give you step-by-steps on how to do it. All right. There's a lot of people that are asking how can they receive your services.
Okay, so our email address is specialeducationacademy.com. Specialeducationacademy.com. So it's advocate at Special Education Academy if you want to know anything about anything. If you want to get if you want to get in touch with Alicia, she's in charge of all of us. If you need representation, whether it's a records review, representation, somebody to help you with state filing or federal filings, all of our team members do that. We will help you.
Well, Erica says, I don't know you personally, but I love your sarcasm. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a doctorate in sarcasm. Yeah. I mean, I printed it up myself, but it's real. Mm-hmm.
Oh, somebody had a follow-up for the migraines. They asked, is it possible that the teacher has a work accommodation granted by the district based on the medical diagnosis?
Sure, if that person works in an office by themselves, but you're teaching little humans. So I would assume that everybody that wrote curriculum would assume the students reading it have the lights on. It's just, the law, I'm just an assumer. So Martha just said, we love Martha. She said in one of her kids' classrooms, they have Christmas lights and essential oils. Here's what we need to have in classrooms. We need to move that nacho bar from the football stadium into every classroom. I think that would change outcomes. We'd probably do better on the state test. Don't you think so? Maybe some Frito pie with raw onions. I think the scores would just go straight up.
Jeff said, it's completely common sense.
Completely common sense is a curriculum that has not been adopted by any state. They are rejecting the common sense. And we're going to take one more question so that I can log on time for...
Why would you say that? Because now it's like so much pressure to find one really good question.
That's the truth. Yeah.
All right. Somebody sent in a really good question.
Okay.
Are teachers required to read an IEP prior to school starting? At meet and greet, the teacher had no clue the student had an IEP.
I feel like you're one of my 75,000 clients. Theoretically, no, because she could stay up all night, drink Red Bull, and read them all. But the day the student arrives into her classroom, she will have already consumed all the IEPs and all the 504s. For sure, that's going to happen. Yeah. Why it's really important on back to school night that you offer a copy of your child's IEP, that you offer a copy of your child's 504 to everyone providing them an educational product. Because a lot of the teachers have not been provided the IEPs and they want them. So we love you. You're doing a great job. Stay hydrated. And remember, if it's not special education, it's not special education. And we love all the other teachers that are stepping in, but you're either a certified special educator or you're not. It's Katrina. Hi. Katrina is one of the smartest diagnosticians in the entire globe. So anyway, we love you. We'll see you in the academy. If you need help from us or representation, just reach out to advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.